Hello everyone and welcome to Facebook Live. Tonight I'm sharing with you the July free class. My apologies for not being on last night. I ended up feeling quite tired and with a bit of headache, so I thought I would just postpone until tonight. So the papers that are being used for this July free class is called Lovely Garden. So let me show you these papers. This is a part of an online exclusive, 12 by 12 papers, and of course, as always, 6 different designs, 2 sheets of each. So these are nice, bold prints with some really versatile colours in them. So let me show you the first side. I love this paper with those little tiny yellow flowers, and this page isn't quite full. I have used quite a few of these pieces because they're really great images to cut out. Let me show you the reverse side. So some of the patterns are a little less busy. I do love this one with the little leaves, which we're actually going to be colouring those on one of the projects tonight. Very versatile polka dots. This is fresh freesia, so it's just a very subtle design on that. And of course some stripes as well. So that is the papers that we're using on both of the cards for tonight's free class. So for those who have their kits, if I move a little bit too quickly, please don't despair. Come back and you'll be able to join me or follow up on replay. Okay, so let me share with you a few other products you'll need. I'm using Simply Said, which is, as always, one of my favourite stamp sets. Most of the cards that I design are designed using this stamp set. So when I'm talking measurements to make banners and things, it's based on this particular stamp set. So in this stamp set, watercolour pencils and a blender pen or a water brush. So the only colour I'm using out of this one is Garden Green, and I've also got here my blender pen as well. Now the blender pen is slightly different to the water pen. It is dual tipped, and this happens to actually be almost a brand new one. So they do come nice and white and clean. The tips do stain over time. Please don't worry about any of the staining because it doesn't affect the way it works. So blender pen, I've got my Garden Green pencil. If you're not using pencils, grab one of your blender pens, just a green. I'm using Garden Green. That's one of the colours in the paper. I've also got 2 ink pads here. I've got Fresh Freesia and Melon Mumbo. And I've done some of the stuff ahead of time for you. And I've got also a Melon Mumbo Stampin' Blend to colour in the linen thread. For those who had the kits posted out, your thread is already coloured in for you. I wasn't sure who had the marker and who didn't. So these are the few products needed for tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. A blending brush, either a large or a small, just a blending brush that you can use on one of the projects. Okay, so card number 1, here it is here. One slight difference with your card, this banner here, I have made slightly wider. So I just thought the slightly wider banner will work a little bit better. So here it is here. So let me go through the products you'll have in your kit. Hi Carol, thank you for joining me. Okay, so you'll have, of course, an envelope. You'll have 2 pieces of the white ribbon. One will measure, well, let me just do these measurements quickly. So the longer piece is 25 centimetres. The shorter piece is 14. So those 2 to go across the front of the card and tie the bow. I have a half sheet of thick white A4. Hi Jenny, thanks for joining us. I have got for the inside a piece of Fresh Freesia. This measures 10 centimetres by 14.4, and I will put the measurements in the comments when I'm done. I have a piece of white. This measures 9.5 by 13.9. my standard measurements for my mats. For the front, you will have an embossed piece, and this is using the So Swirly embossing folder. This one measures 10 centimeters by 14.4. There is, let me just get the measurements for this. We've got a strip of Designer Series paper that's 2 centimeters by 10. We've got a second piece of Designer Series paper which measures 5 centimeters by 13 for the banner. As I mentioned, I have made this banner in the kits a centimetre wider. I just think after I made the card, I kept looking at it and I think it was the banner that I wasn't completely happy with, so I made it a little wider. And also another piece of white, which measures 6 centimetres by 8. Oh, and a die cut circle. I panicked a little bit then. I thought if I haven't got a circle in my kit, most likely no one else has, but it is there. And this circle is cut from the Stylish Shapes dies, which many of you know is one of my favourites. Okay, so let's make a start on this card. So the first thing I want to do is do my little bit of stamping, and this is where you'll need the blending brush. So just around the sentiment, the circle here, I've done some light blending with the Fresh Freesia ink as well. So let me get just a note. Now, as you can see, my stamps are very well used. They are quite stained, but I promise you the staining does not affect the way they work. Okay, so I've got my Fresh Freesia, and this ink pad should be slightly more juicy because I actually only just recently re-inked it. So I'm just going to get, as always, a scrap piece of paper just to make sure that I'm happy with how it's stamping. So I will be centering the sentiment over the circle. Very simple. The next step is using a blending brush. Now, if you don't have the blending brush, use a sponge dauber or perhaps a stamping sponge. Hi Simone, thanks for joining us tonight. Okay, so getting a bit of ink onto my brush, I'm going to start off my cardstock. And this works whether you are using the glass mat or whether you've got a piece of paper underneath you. If you start off the cardstock and move onto it, you actually end up with much smoother colour. Let me hold that up a little. So there you can see it's just got a little bit of a blush of colour on it. Okay, that's all I need to do with the ink pad. So I'm going to pop this one aside and I'm going to give my mat a quick wipe just to get the excess ink up. Oh, and a piece of paper towel to dry it. Okay. I think that's pretty good. All right, so let me bring these other pieces in and we'll start putting the card together. My card base, of course, needs to be folded in half. And to get that nice crisp crease, use your bone folder. This is the thick white cardstock, so I did score this one ahead of time. Okay, so to complete the inside, as I mentioned, the measurements for these pieces, the white measures 9.5 by 13.9, and the piece of Fresh Freesia measures 10 centimeters by 14.4. As mentioned earlier, they are the standard measurements that I use for my mats. Every now and then I do deviate from that, but generally not. Okay, and my choice of adhesive Facebook Lives most of the time is Stamp and Seal. So my reminders, as always, use a light hand with it and just that little tick or that flick of the wrist just to break the stream of adhesive. Okay, inside done. Let's make a start on the outside. So I've got my piece that's already been embossed. The first thing I need to put down is my piece of the Designer Series paper to make the banner. So you can choose which way your paper goes. To get a nice even banner, at the bottom, I'm going to roughly find the center. If you can't really eyeball it or you're a bit worried, just use a ruler and a pencil and just put a little pencil mark. I'm going to snip up the middle about 1 centimetre, and then I'm going to cut out these little triangles, which will leave me with a nice even banner. So if you like, you can just kind of cut into your banner a little bit. I found in the past that has never worked for me because I like the bottom of my banner to be nice and even. So as I mentioned, this piece of Designer Series paper is 1 centimetre wider than what I did on my sample card. Okay, so sticking the banner down. Oops, having trouble with my stamp and seal tonight. There we go. Okay, so getting this down first. And I'm going to go in maybe 2 centimetres from the left-hand side and stick my banner down. So it's Friday night. I'm not normally doing a live on a Friday night, so I do have a question for everybody. What have you got planned this weekend? Hopefully it's something exciting. But anyway, please share what you're doing in the comments. So this piece of white, let me just tell you the measurements for this piece again. This is 6 centimetres by 8. So that's going to roughly go in the middle and around about 1 centimetre, maybe 1.5 centimetres from the right hand side. And roughly centre of my banner. There we go. Okay, one more piece to stick down. So this work card so far is fairly flat. I actually haven't included yet any dimensionals on these layers. And let me just see. I think that'll work. Okay, next I've got my 2 centimetre by 10 centimetre strip to stick down. Okay, so Carol's making some cards. Yes, the two-tone. For anybody who has signed up for the sampler, I do have registration open until Monday, so I've extended it out a little bit. So it's 20 sheets, so 6 by 12 sheets. You get a selection of 20 colours, a half sheet of all of 20 colours. The cost for it is $30. As I mentioned, there is still time to register for that if you would like to. But those who have registered, everything will be in the mail next week. Okay, so I just need to trim just a little bit off the side there. Okay, so Jenny's baking for CWA, to, Bunnings Barbecue and Cake Stall on Sunday. You have got a busy weekend. Okay, next piece. I'm going to, my piece of white ribbon, this measures 14 centimetres. I'm going to stick this one down and I'm going to be putting some of this nice thin tape underneath it. So, of course, as I always tell you, this is not a Stampin' Up product. This is a nice thin tape that Stampin' Up actually doesn't carry, but this tape is available at some of the discount stores and Spotlight, places like that. So I'm sticking my piece of ribbon down just because it's going to hold that really nicely in place, and flipping it over and using a little bit of sticky tape to stick down this. Now you can use double-sided tape or something else if you like. Sticky tape is nice and easy, no mess. Oops, upside down. Okay, next. I have my sentiment just for you, which I've done the little bit of blending of the ink around, and that is going to go just off to the left-hand side. I'm sticking this on with some dimensionals. Let me see, what have I got here? We'll just use some of the standard size dimensionals. And about 3 for this is all that I need. Okay, and then my sentiment will go off to the left-hand side. Okay, next, a 25 centimetre piece of ribbon. So Simone's going to Fountain Gate. Oh, point shoes. I guess after her Stedford, she would have worn through them. So I hope she did really well. I saw some photos that you shared a little while ago, Simone, and she looks so cute in her costumes. Okay, I tied my bow and trimming up my tails just to make those look nice and neat. Okay, so this I'm going to stick off to the side just like that. Normally I'd use a glue dot, but I need a little bit more space with the adhesive, or a little bit more, I guess, area for the ribbon to stick onto. So this is the Stampin' Up! Tear and Tape. So this is a really nice strong adhesive. So I'm going to tear off, what's that? Not quite 2 centimetres. And this is going to stick over the top of the other ribbon. Let me hold that up just a little more. So there is a little bit more space for my bow to stick onto. And this way I'm hoping that my bow will stay in place. Because I found every now and then, depending on the ribbon, you might get your bow falling off if there's not enough adhesive underneath it. Now, if you don't have double-sided tape, alternatively, use 2 glue dots just to give it a little bit more. Okay, so finally, to finish this card, some dimensionals on the back. And as I mentioned, I am using the standard ones. A couple in the middle. And I have found that with the standard dimensionals, I do find it easier to quickly flick these off, just getting your fingernail underneath it, versus using the Take Your Pick tool. Okay, so her shoes only just held up. Yeah, that's always a bonus, isn't it? I mean, it'd be terrible if her point shoes failed during her competition. At least you can get them before school goes back, which is really good. Okay, number 1 card done. As I mentioned, the only difference, my banner is a little thicker, and I think I like this one a bit better. So I think it was the right decision to increase the size of this, or the width of this banner, by 1 centimetre. That's card number 1. As I mentioned earlier, for those who have got the kits in front of you, if you fall a little bit behind, please don't worry at all. This will be available to watch on replay. Okay, let me just pop some of these things aside so they're out of the way. And start with a clean area for the next card. Okay, so again, using the same designer series papers, which are called Lovely Garden. So this is card number 2. So this paper here is, let me just quickly find it and show you that piece. There it is. It just has the black and white with the little leaves. To add a bit more colour, I've coloured in the leaves on this one. So, yeah, before I coloured the leaves, it needed a little something. So with this card, there is a little bit of fussy cutting to do. I haven't done mine. I thought I'd do that along with everybody else just to give people time to catch up. So let me share with you what's in this kit. Oh, let me pop that up there. So there's half a sheet of Melon Mumbo. So this is 14.9 by 21 centimetres. There are 2 pieces of white, which measure 10 centimetres by 14.4. The first piece of designer series paper measures 11 centimetres by 7. The second piece with the leaves on it is 7 by 8 centimetres. Plus you'll have a floral image. You may have this one or you may have the same one that I've used here. So this one is a fussy cut. So let me just share the other two pieces. This is an oval punch, and I can't remember the exact name of it, and I don't have my book here to have a look, but this is one of the current punches, and a piece of baker's twine which measures 25 centimeters. So I think I'll colour the baker's twine first, just to give it a few moments to dry. For those who have your kits already, your piece of twine is already coloured for you. So this is the Melon Mambo Stampin' Blends marker. I'm using the brush end, or the thicker end. So you've got a bullet end and you've got like a paintbrush end. So I'm using the paintbrush end on its side. And I'm going to be colouring in this twine. So you'll notice it rolls a little bit, but that's okay. You want to get good ink coverage all around the piece of baker's twine. And it kind of naturally just rolls a little bit anyway for you. One of the good things about using the Stampin' Blends to colour in the baker's twine or ribbons is it's got alcohol in it, so it dries fairly quickly. You won't get colour transfer onto your project. If you use an ink pad or the Stampin' Right marker, which has water-based ink in it, you will find that it's going to need quite a bit of time to dry, or you'll get that colour transferring onto your card. Okay, last little bit. And this ink does go really quite well. It saturates through the baker's twine. So any colour you would like your baker's twine to be, use one of your Stampin' Blends. So as I mentioned, it's one of the alcohol markers, which is great to use because it does dry fairly quickly. Okay, I'm going to pop that aside. And this will clean off a glass mat really easily, as long as you don't let it dry too much. Otherwise, a little bit of hand sanitizer, it lifts it straight up. Okay. So next I'm going to do the sentiment, which is using, as I mentioned earlier, Simply Said. And I'm using the Birthday Wishes stamp for this, which gets used an awful lot. Okay, let me grab this one. When it comes to mounting your stamps, you can either do it two ways. You can either put it straight onto the block. I find if you put it face down onto your mat or your piece of paper, that way then your stamp doesn't warp. Some of the long thin stamps, they can go on a little bit crooked, particularly photopolymer, but having it sitting on your mat and then putting the block over the top and picking it up, you'll find that there's no warping at all with or it going crooked on the block. Not so much an issue with the Birthday Wishes, but if you're using Let's Celebrate or the Happy Birthday, you want that to be nice and straight. So that is an easy way to achieve that. Okay, Melon Mambo ink. And as always, you've got a dual practice stamp. Well, I always do. I like to do a practice stamp. It's also a good way of gauging how wet your ink pad is too. Okay, centering that. And that's stamped really nicely. Okay. So with this card, I think I'm going to get all these different elements done and then we'll put together at the end. Okay, next, some fussy cutting. So as I mentioned, you may have this image or you may have the same one that I had on the sample card. So you'll just need to bear with me while I do this little bit of cutting out. It'll just take a minute or so. But I thought that I would do this just to give people who have got their kits a few moments to catch up. Now with some of these bits on the between the leaves and the stems, you can go in as close or as far as you like. I tend to get in a little bit closer, but I always leave that little bit of white paper around it. These ones actually aren't too bad to cut out. They're quite a generous size. Okay. And of course the paper snip scissors are really quite amazing to use as well. So if you don't have paper snips and would like to get a pair, please be aware that when the stock is depleted in the warehouse, there won't be any more coming in for a little while, as Stampin' Up! Are looking for a new supplier for these little scissors. So if you'd desperately like a pair of these, because they are really great to use, I do recommend that you pop an order in sooner rather than later. Okay, so getting there. All right, just while I'm finishing doing this, so next week on Monday night, I do have Stampin' Blends class. So if you're interested in doing that one, it's not too late to register. Please register by about lunchtime tomorrow, just so I can get the kits prepared for Monday night. So they'll be starting at 7:30 on Monday. For those who come to that class, you will also need to bring the Stampin' Blend markers with you. I will send out a message before the class just to let you know what colours we're using. Sometimes it just saves bringing all of the colours. And I think next week, other than Stampin' Blends class, which I rescheduled from a couple of weeks ago, I'll do Facebook Live on Tuesday. And I think that's all I've got on for next week. No, I don't. Wait. I've also got a Take Your Pick class, which is on Saturday. I actually think I may be doing that one on Friday night as well. I just can't remember what I put in. So there are 3 classes to choose from. So if you scroll down on my Facebook page, you'll see which classes those are. So it's sort of a catch-up class in case you missed anything earlier in the month. Okay, so that is Fussy Cut Out. That took me a little while longer than expected, but it's another element that is ready to go onto my card. The next one, we need to do a little bit of colouring. As I mentioned, I'm using Garden Green pencil. So I'm going to, as quick as I can, colour in each of these leaves fairly roughly. And I'll show you how rough it is in just a moment. And then I'll be using my blender pen to smooth the colour out a little bit. Of course, you can use Stampin' Blends, you can use different watercolours, you could use your markers if you wanted to, your Stampin' Right markers. You could use a water painter and an ink pad if you wanted to. But this is Garden Green that I'm using here. And Garden Green is one of the greens in the paper, which is why I chose this particular colour. I actually don't do a lot of colouring on a Facebook Live. I should start doing a little bit more. Almost finished with this bit, and then it's just using the blender pen. So sometimes it's just a little bit quicker to have all your elements done, and then all you need to do is stick them all together. Okay, let me hold this up and show you how my colouring looks. So it is a bit scrappy. It's just literally I've got some colour down in the middle of each of the leaves. So with my scrap paper, just so that I can check, this is a brand new one, so it's not going to be dirty. You want to make sure the liquid coming out of this is nice and clean if the tip is stained, and you just gently roll that on your piece of scrap paper. So And then this will be used just like a marker. And all I'm doing now, and I'll do a couple more, then I'll hold it up and show you. All I'm doing with this is moving the colour around and smoothing it out. Let me hold this up. So you can see there the ones that I've done. The colour is all pushed around and moved. So that's one of the bonus things about using watercolours and using a blender pen. Now, if you don't have one of these blender pens, one of the water painters will do the job as well, or as we also know them, an aqua painter, which they just have a little bit of water in them. Okay, so not too many more to do. Oh, missed some. And of course, with this bit of colouring, with the watercolour, if you go outside the lines, it actually doesn't matter too much. I think it's all just a part of being a little bit creative. And we all know that watercolouring and things like that don't really need to be perfect. Okay, that's done. So, oh, no, missed two. I think it's done now. No, it's not. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Now, to clean the tip, you'll probably be able to see that a little bit better now. I'm just carefully rolling the tip until the clear liquid comes out. The tip may end up a touch stained, but it doesn't affect the way that the blender pen works. And you can see there just the excess that's cleaned off. Okay, let's put this card together. Excuse me. Okay, so as always, the base needs to be folded in half. Now, with the coloured cardstock, I don't tend to score this cardstock, always the thick white, because it takes a little bit more to actually fold it. Okay, so finishing off the inside first, a piece of white, and this one measures 10 centimetres by 14.4. And my Stampin' Seal. Okay, nice and easy. Of course, if you like, you can use a little bit of the Designer Series paper on the inside as well. It may be just a 1 centimetre strip is all it really needs. Okay. Again, these layers are all stuck down flat except for the sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and stick each of these down. And of course, with the Designer Series paper, you can choose whichever side you would like to have up. So this is going to be centered and along that left-hand side. And then I've got my piece that I've coloured. Again, it is going to be centered. And it's going on the opposite side. So I've just turned my card around just to make it a little bit easier, I guess, and a little bit less awkward for me to stick on. Okay, next I'm just going to sit my flower around about there, and then my sentiment's going to go around about there. Okay, so I think I'm going to stick this on first, because then I can have my flower going a little bit off this piece. And this is stuck straight down with Stampin' Seal, and this is just going to be centered on my card front. There we go. And then my flower, as I mentioned, I actually can have that going ever so slightly onto the card base. I think I'll use some Tombow for this, just so I can spread it around just a little bit. And This is a new Tombow, so I don't even need to squeeze too hard to get it to come out. And with the Tombow, you may just need to hold your hand over it just for a few moments to make sure that that bonds properly with the paper underneath. Okay, 2 more steps. So next is my sentiment, which I'm going to be putting on with dimensionals. So just the standard ones that I'm using tonight. It's almost a shame to cover all of those flowers, but that's okay. I'll live with it. So that is roughly centered. Move it up or down or to the left or right, just so you get that sitting where you would like it to. Finally, to finish this off, my piece of baker's twine that I coloured with the Melon Mambo Stampin' Blends is dry. So I will tie a bow with this one. And I am going to use a glue dot to put this one on. Let me see. With the Take Your Pick tool, this is the spatula end. If to turn this around, it's a very simple quarter turn, flip it around, back in, twist it, and then you've got your piercing tool back. Okay, so got my glue dot, just let me hold it up a little. It's just here underneath the sentiment, and stick my bow on the top. And I'm going to just ever so slightly trim the little tails just to get rid of that look of that little bit that's frayed. And that is card number 2 done. So these cards are quite simple design. Let me bring in these two. Oops, get rid of that one. Card number 1 and card number 2. Nice simple designs. I think this design here was out of one of the sketches from last year's annual catalogue. And this design I saw somewhere online. I just like the idea of it. It's got quite a few layers, but it doesn't have a lot of bulk because I haven't used many layers of dimensionals. So both cards, this one I think has got 2 layers. This is just the 1 layer. So for me, very light on in using dimensionals, because normally I'd have at least probably 3 layers up on dimensionals, but these will be friendly for posting. They get too thick. Australia Post sometimes don't like it, so it also saves you a bit on postage as well. So that is the free class for July. Just as a reminder, to earn the free class, you can earn this class by placing an order of $75 or more during the month. So for anybody who places an order during July, you'll qualify for the August free class. So that is where that is at the moment. As I mentioned, you have until Monday to register for the 2-tone cardstock share or sampler. For those who've already registered, thank you so much. And if you haven't done so already, if you could please forward payment by Monday, that would be absolutely fabulous. So thank you again, everyone. I appreciate you joining me tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. See you soon.